Welcome to the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. I am your host, Alex Green, and I'm on a mission to bring the power of embodiment to people all around the world. In this podcast, we explore how embodiment practices, trauma healing, and knowledge about the human nervous system can help us find our ground, discover new sources of meaning, and create connection in an ever-changing world. The deepest change is embodied change.
All right. Well, I'm back in the podcast recording booth for my second interview today. Normally, I do an interview once a week, but this week I had two. So fun to be able to do that. And I have the big honor and pleasure to sit down with a newer colleague of mine, or newer to me anyway. Arjuna George is joining us here from Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, which is a beautiful part of North America, if you've never been.
Yes.
And the topic and the theme today is that Arjuna is retired from a career as a fireman in Canada, both I think a 24-year career as a fireman and at least a decade as a fire chief. And within the last several years, we'll hear this from you, Arjuna, retired from his service in the fire department and has kind of launched a new phase of his career, which is around supporting firemen and others in resilience and coaching and leadership. And we connected because Arjuna has brought TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, the neurogenic tremor process that is so frequently one of the themes of this podcast. So if you've listened to any other episode, you probably have been hearing about TRE. So Arjuna has been exploring that and working with his population using that. So that's part of what we're going to discuss. And Arjuna also has a really cool podcast called Beneath the Helmet, which is sort of focused on his theme. And so he's done some good interviews with other TRE people and other people not TRE related, but in the general theme of resilience work for his population. And I want to just read one quote from your website before I say hello, which is that in this sort of description of Arjuna's work on his Silver Arrow coaching and consulting website, very good website, we'll put the link in there. And it says, Arjuna is more than a life coach. He's a resilience warrior in high pressure environments. And I was like, yeah, a resilience warrior. That's a good way to put it. So I definitely want to include that in what that means in our conversation here today. So anyway, Arjuna, welcome to the show.
Fantastic. It's an honor to be here. And I've been following your work and your great podcasts. And it's just an honor to be here.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Well, why don't you, maybe you starting wherever it makes sense in the timeline, but what I'm always curious about is, you had a sort of a certain kind of background and experiences. Something led you into your very clear mission in the world right now, which seems to be around supporting and educating and reinforcing resilience with firefighting communities and maybe beyond that. But could you just tell us back us up a little bit, and how did you get into this direction of your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I was in the fire service for 24 years, and a good chunk of that was in a chief officer role. So in that role came a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure on my plate. And I own a lot of my mental health challenges and the burnout that I actually came to in 2020.
Okay.
But because of that, I own it because I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Right.
I put a lot of pressure on my expectations and what I was meant to do. And it was a lot of unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
And in 2020, so after, several years in the fire service,
yeah,
I could probably feel last 5-10 years of that was starting to feel, all right, my nervous system's a little fried.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel anxiety when I never felt anxiety.
Yeah.
So in June 2020, something bigger than myself, something bigger than anything I've experienced, forced me to get out of bed, go call my boss that day and say, effective today, I need to take a break. I need to take a stress leave.
Wow.
No idea where that came from. I hadn't talked to myself. I hadn't talked to my partner, my wife.
Right.
I hadn't talked to the kids about it. I hadn't contemplated this whatsoever. Just
Interesting.
something larger than me
Yep.
forced me to go out on that lawn, call my boss, and make, and some people call it the 5,000 pound phone.
Uh-huh.
When you have to pick up that phone when you really don't want to or don't know how to, but you pick up that very, very heavy phone to call basically for help.
Right.
And when I called for help, it was more along the lines of, I just need some time away.
Yep.
A lot of introspection over that time off. That
was your supervisor, were they receptive to, was it okay, good. Yeah.
They probably saw the writing on the wall, right. So to speak. And it allowed me to, okay, I don't have to, I'm not pressured. I got sick bank time. I'm all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of number one finally, because I really didn't take care of number one.
Right.
For many years.
Yep.
So in 2020, as everyone knows, COVID was hitting the world and things were nuts. And as a fire chief, I was working around the clock on the phone more than I ever been on my phone before.
Yeah.
Talking to government officials, talking to firefighters, trying to figure out how we're going to handle this. Because in the early days, it honestly sounded like you walked outside, you're going to die.
Right.
That's how crazy it was at the very beginning.
In the very beginning, I remember. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that kind of put the, maybe just put me over the edge a little bit, that extra little few months of COVID kind of precautions and prevention.
Yeah.
But my burnout had been steaming and kind of burning in the background for many years.
Yep. In the making. Yep.
In the making. Yes.
Yep.
And so when I took my leave, I hired a couple of coaches to kind of sort me out, to kind of figure out, is this the end of my fire career?
Mm.
Is this the, what's next for me? Is this, is this a life sentence? I didn't really know if this was going to be me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so coaches were amazing and kind of helped me see light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But then after that, I started thinking like, okay, I need to work on every aspect of my body and my mental health. So I took a very holistic approach to it and tried everything under the sun that I could possibly imagine. Craniosacral, regular massage, deep tissue fascia massage, acupuncture, nutritionist, naturopath, you name it. I was trying it.
Yeah.
And I was getting a lot of relief from it. But then one of my massage therapists, who's also a TRE provider, Martin Derry. Probably in our second session or so, she sat down and said, I really think TRE could be of great value to you.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I've heard of this. I've actually recommended it to firefighters in the past, but
how had you heard of it? Not everybody has heard of it. So I'm curious how you, do you remember how you'd heard of it?
Probably thanks to Martin and talking to firefighters that she was, that were clients of hers.
Yeah. In the community. Yeah.
In the community. Yeah.
Yep.
Prior to that, never heard of it whatsoever. Once I heard of it, I Googled it, and some of the videos I saw were like, a little scary in my opinion.
Right.
I didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the natural reaction for a lot of people when they first hear about it. It's like a little bit of apprehension.
My body shakes without me, doing
anything. Yeah. And after the second one, I said, okay, I'm game. I need to do something to figure out my nervous system.
Okay.
First session, mind-blowing difference in my body, my emotion, my nervous system. I remember driving away. It's about a 30-minute drive from where her clinic is. And I felt like $1 million. I felt energized, but also very relaxed. I felt very zen, very clear. My nervous system was very calm. And this was after just one session with her. Following that, went back for a second session, maybe 2 weeks later, something like that. And at the end of that, I was hands down, I am getting certified in this. I want to learn this more than just being a client.
Wow.
After the second session.
After the second session. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
So I signed up through TRE Canada and finished my program there in 2021.
Right.
And it completely, I even call it saved my life. Because it really, not in the regards to I was on the road to to death, but it was on the fact that it changed my life in a whole different pattern. And I was able to actually experience joy. I was actually able to experience relaxation, which is something I'd never experienced as a high performing, high kind of impact career. I was on the go 24/7, like always going.
Yep.
And I never had a chance to just be by myself and be in my body more than anything.
Right.
So that TRE really allowed me to be in my body, to actually experience a lot of the red flags that my body was trying to send me that I ignored for many, many years.
Yeah.
And start to feel pain in my body, which, you know, is a good thing in one way, because pain is telling you there's an issue you got to deal with.
Yeah.
So arthritis started to pick up in my knees, and I was like, all these things started to kind of
showing up in a way.
Yeah. Because I ignored them for so long, because I wasn't really embodied into me, right?
A little bit dissociated from some of those
100%,
sensations and whatnot. Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
So that kind of sparked the whole next chapter of my life of inventing Silver Arrow. TRE was definitely a part of it. And I wanted to kind of introduce a very holistic approach to wellness.
Yeah.
I want to have the aspect of coaching, but also the somatic work of TRE with coaching.
Well, let me put you on the spot for a second. Not in a minute. I don't think this isn't too much on the spot, but you know, for somebody listening, and they're like, okay, well, so he was stressed. He had a high pressure career, maybe some injuries, certainly some stress, probably some trauma, kind of got into a burnout situation. And then he looked to nervous system work. And in a couple of sessions of this particular style, TRE, you saw a lot of changes. And then probably over a few months, I'm guessing, or more, kind of an unfolding or some changing in your nervous system. If you were going to just sort of give kind of like the layman's explanation, not of TRE in general, but like what did your nervous system need to go to be? What were you in a sort of a fight or flight response? Was there freeze? How do you describe what was the healing, the journey that your nervous system needed to take to feel the joy that you mentioned, and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I guess I would kind of call it as definitely a stress response, a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And I kind of started realizing that early on when I was seeing my physio and my massage, that I couldn't relax enough for them to manipulate my body at all.
I see.
I was always fighting them. So if they were trying to move my leg, I was pulling my leg back in.
Okay.
If they wanted to work on my arm, I was pulling my arm back in.
Okay.
So I started to understand that that aspect was kind of happening in my body.
Okay.
Which, was kind of new to me, because that's how I just knew life. That's how I knew life.
Yeah.
But I wasn't necessarily in a freeze state or a disassociated state. I felt like I could connect to my body when I put my mind to it, or when I allowed myself to do it.
Okay.
And I think the big principle there is having somebody you really trust. And I trusted Martin and allowed her to kind of experiment with me and allowed me to kind of bring out some stuff that was really deep into my body. Right.
Cool.
And one of the big things that we went through was anger was an emotion that I did not deal with very well.
Yep.
And the fact of anger was I suppressed it.
Yep.
It wasn't the fact that I was expressing it. I wasn't getting loud. I wasn't verbal. I was never mad. I was always very, very calm.
Contained. Yeah. Yeah.
But all that anger and frustration, especially in the last 5 years of my career, just sitting deep in my chest, deep in my body.
Okay.
And so Martin actually put me through a process where we were doing TRE, and where I would actually scream out loud, or I would hold a pillow and just squeeze it. And after a couple times of that, it was a huge relief of that bent up anger in my body.
It could move through. Yeah.
It was expressed. Right.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And now I just know how to manage anger a little bit better. Right. So I don't necessarily have that tension in my body anymore.
Right.
Because I know how to process it better than I did before.
I see. Yeah. Wow.
It's a very magical feeling. It's, I've always, since day one, had very big shakes. My shakes have always been pretty, I classify it almost violent. Like they're very big, very fast.
Dynamic and big. Yeah.
But extremely comforting and safe feeling at the same time.
I see.
I very seldom have little vibrations. It's very big releases.
It's big
And
stuff.
I'm a 6'2"
Yeah.
muscular, so I got a lot of tension in there, right? There's some big muscles that need to get released, right?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And so probably, if I'm getting my timeline right, maybe so you've been actively tremoring yourself for probably 3-4 years, something in that neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah. 4 years.
And like for you, everybody's different. Like some people, they just sort of tremor as need. Like, for me, it's a little bit like that. There's weeks I tremor a lot. There's weeks I basically feel okay. If I travel, I tend to do it because my body feels out of whack. And so it's a little bit like I'm just kind of tuning into my nervous system. And other people are just like, hey, I do this every night before I go to bed, or I go to my once a week class or whatever it is. What about for you? How do you kind of structure your own practice these days?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Well, when I first did the schooling, it was a lot of TRE. Pretty much every day I was doing TRE, either teaching it or doing it myself. So that was on the extreme end of things.
Right.
And now that that's over, I pretty much do it at least once a week. I work out of an integrative health clinic where I teach TRE and coaching out of there.
I see.
And I kind of dedicate that day to at least tremor myself before I see clients.
Yep.
But then I've also started integrating it into whenever I go and do a keynote or a presentation or a workshop.
Yep.
Before I come down from my hotel room, I'll do a shake in the hotel room.
Yeah.
It just kind of prepares me, just kind of relaxes me, gets that kind of bent up little energy, kind of processes it and moves it. Yeah. So that's kind of mine. And then if there is some sort of stress in my life, I'll add an extra TRE session into it.
Yep.
But it's usually once a week or as needed after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Well, tell us, maybe how has it landed with other the people you work with? Do people sort of take to it immediately? Are they sometimes skeptical? What's your experience kind of as a provider now, incorporating this within your coaching practice and whatnot?
I'm definitely finding people who are going through my coaching embrace it much deeper and faster.
Okay.
The people who I approach just regarding TRE or that process of shaking,
right?
Definitely some apprehension, definitely some skepticism, definitely some, just the feeling of I'm not quite sure. Maybe one day, kind of.
Is this
attitude.
for me? Yeah,
yes,
kind of a thing. Yeah.
And so I would say the fire service is kind of where I really want to spread the message.
Yeah.
That population is a little bit challenging to get into because honestly, I think the fire service is just getting their heads around mental health therapy. So talk therapy.
Some of that is probably it's probably taboo to some extent, kind of the mental health side of it. Maybe.
It's getting much better, but now the mental health, now they're like, oh, and so now we have to work on this as well. So they're finally, after I'd probably say a good decade of mental health education and awareness. Yeah. Mental health training in the fire service is kind of normal now.
Okay.
And so when I introduced this, it's like, oh, so now another avenue, another thing
nervous
to learn.
System slice of it is a newer on the scene. Yeah.
But I also know all the firefighters who have tried it have just amazing results from it, immediate results. And many firefighters that don't show emotion, don't show any body awareness, come out of that feeling much healthier, much more at ease in their life.
Yeah.
So I've done it locally. I've done it with a few other fire departments. I've done it online. But I would say majority of my clients are kind of getting close to the age of retirement and finally coming to understanding that their wellness needs to be taken into serious consideration. So that seems to be the clients that I'm working with now are the ones who are finally realizing that they got to take care of themselves.
They're getting some signals, kind of like you were.
Exactly.
Something is starting to let them know that they need something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
For the coaching programs you do, I mean, I imagine that, in some ways people might be on different trajectories, kind of depending on, what their sort of needs are. But like, is there any, like, for somebody who comes to you for coaching, let's assume they're in the fire service or you're nearing retirement. How do you kind of think about what gets included in their program, or do you have any I don't know, even before you get to TRE, are there some things
Mhm.
that you sort of try to sort of support or things like that?
Yeah, well, kind of going back to the coaching, a very holistic approach. It's
Uh-huh.
not just what's the challenge or what's your goal you want to do today, like a basic executive coach would be like.
Right.
I always have the lens of nutrition, sleep, nervous system health, mental health, stress.
Yeah.
Those are always very top-notch questions,
Yeah.
and always a theme in all the conversations. Always, because everyone in the world has some sort of tension and stress in their body,
Yeah.
some more than others. And so I always start with that.
Yeah.
I got a couple of different heart math stress assessments I can do with them.
Yeah.
I have a resiliency profile I can do with them. So it helps them kind of understand in a very clear dashboard kind of view
Yeah.
how they're doing in their
Yeah.
overall wellness.
I see. Okay.
Because truly, if your wellness is in good order, you're
Yeah.
going to excel in any job or occupation you want to do.
Yep.
So I really kind of hone in on that wellness aspect
Piece of it.
with
Yeah.
the coaching, even if it's I'm looking at changing careers and I want to do this. I want to get this job. How can you help me as a coach?
Mm.
I will, but it also very closely related to stress and resilience and
Mm.
life balance, which I call life harmony. Just kind of
Mm.
trying to figure out where you're spending your time. Are you spending it on the right areas? Because a lot of us waste a lot of time on a lot of things that we don't necessarily propel us forward,
Right.
either healthy wise, spiritually, or
Yeah.
professionally. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Is your coaching pretty much one-on-one relationships, or do you do groups or?
I would say 90% is one-to-one,
Yeah.
and then I do offer group. And I actually want to do a lot more group in 2024, 2025.
Got
That's
it.
definitely my vision, just to reach more people and
Got it.
also to make it more affordable for people as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when TRE enters the picture, let's say for a coaching client, and the nervous system side of it, or the building resilience side of it comes in, are you kind of typically guiding them one-to-one, or do you form groups? I
Mhm.
mean, you mentioned a weekly class you're doing in a local integrated medicine clinic or whatever, but
Yes.
what about with your coaching clients?
So with the coaching clients, it's usually maybe depends. I kind of lay it on their table what they need that day.
I
So if
see.
they've actually booked for a TRE session, but they come in and really look stressed out and they need to talk more,
Yeah.
I'll
Do
pivot
that.
and we'll do coaching instead,
I
or
see.
vice versa.
Yep.
But just for my own, I'm still fairly new in TRE,
Hmm.
so I prefer to meet one-on-one with all my clients prior to going any group sessions.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
now that I've been
I like that too. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
now that I've been at the integrative health clinic, I've had quite a few clients over the year that I'm now introducing group TRE
Hmm.
at the clinic as well. So
Yeah. That's cool being part of an integrated health team.
Mhm.
Like how, being there doing TRE, were the other practitioners already know what TRE was, or do you find yourself educating people about it?
Yep, I offered free sessions to all the staff there to kind of get them up to speed. Some of them we were kind of understood the concept of TRE and the body holds stress and trauma and the muscles and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
really didn't understand the concept of how to get to that.
Okay.
So yeah, I've offered it to all the people there, and some
Right.
of them have taken up on it. But what I found is once they understand it, they refer their clients to me on a regular basis now
Yep.
because they understand the power of TRE
Yep.
versus just another modality that they're not quite sure about. So
Yeah. Very
it's
cool.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I can see from website and social media, and and from speaking with you previously, like in addition to your coaching practice, you're pretty active in the larger community. You travel, you speak at conferences. You wrote that recent article for the Crackle
Mhm.
publication, kind of about TRE for a fire service audience. So you're obviously kind of tell us just a little bit about that. Some of, or I guess, what are you doing, or what are you, as you look out over, say, a next, I don't know, 5-year time horizon arbitrarily,
Mhm.
what are you hoping to do more of, or where are you headed with all this?
Well, I definitely have a huge passion for the coaching and TRE, so I think that will be consistent
Yeah.
through the bases. I think that will be definitely part of my business for the next 5 years, easy.
Yeah.
What I've also grown to love is writing. So
Uh-huh.
I authored my first book, Burnt Around the Edges, which is about my story going through burnout and all the tools and techniques. And
Right.
basically, it's a handbook for anyone who's experiencing burnout or
Right.
in it right now.
Yep. Yep.
And that has kind of opened up a lot of doors of public speaking,
Yep.
keynotes, workshops. I'm pretty much booked every month until July now for across Canada. Heading to Denver next week, and it's just I love that opportunity to share. I've always been that person, and I think that's why coaching is kind of drawn to me. Is that
Right.
I love seeing people excel. I love seeing people grow and
Right.
develop, and by now we'll go to workshops and keynotes. I can see people growing and learning and
Right.
changing. Right, so that
Yeah.
brings me joy. And
Yeah.
joy, once again, back to that word joy, is a word that I never used prior to my burnout.
Got
I
it.
didn't
Got
really
it.
know what joy was. Like I just worked. That's what I did. I just worked. So now
Yeah.
I truly
Worked
enjoy.
and
Yes.
saved people from fires. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's work. That's work. Yep.
That's work. Yeah.
But what my real passion is retreats. I really
Uh-huh.
want to get into that retreat world of
Yeah.
hosting them globally across the world and
Yeah.
bringing in all the parts of what I can share.
Yeah.
So my mental health, my physical health,
Yeah.
nervous system, coaching, personal
Yep.
development.
Yep.
I'm very open-minded. So I like to experiment with different things and just kind of see what's out there. But retreats is definitely, it's always been a wish of mine to host retreats.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Cool.
a very kind of, before the fire service, I actually wanted to get into owning my own restaurant and hospitality kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I love the hospitality where, once again, go like somebody's eating some amazing food that I just cooked. I love
Right.
seeing their smile on their face
Right.
when they're eating it, and kind of what coaching does, right? I see the smile on their face when they see that light bulb go off and they're like, that's what I've been missing. So I think that's where that all stems to, is just seeing the satisfaction of people growing and getting better, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
With the, because before you retired, you were in a leadership role, as a fire chief. For any of your former, and I don't know what the people that you were supervising, have you connected with some of them around either the burnout side of things or TRE or coaching?
Definitely.
I'm curious if you've been connected in that way.
Yep. It's also a little bit, I wouldn't say awkward, but it's also, we have a very close relationship. So sometimes it's nice when you're having a coach. A TRE would be different, but a coach is a little bit different when you have a real close relationship.
Yeah,
Sometimes
hard
it's nicer.
to be sort of in two roles in a way. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have coached several firefighters from my own department.
Yeah.
I've also taught TRE with several of the members. They were also part of my TRE journey of getting certified as well. So that helped out as well.
Right.
And I have one member right now who's working with WorkSafe BC, trying to figure out a way to have it compensated as a modality for their PTSD recovery.
Yeah.
Don't know how that's going to transpire, but that would be very interesting if it does.
Yeah.
So, I think what I've also found is I offered TRE to a group of members when we lost one of our own. And it was just maybe a year after I left the fire service. And we lost one of our own. And I went in there, I think it was 3 or 4 days later, and did a TRE session with the people who responded to that call as well.
I see.
And that was a very powerful moment. I'm so glad I did it, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. That does sounds, I can imagine that made a big difference.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've also experimented with partners in the firefighter. So I would sit down with the firefighter and their partner, and we'd do a group TRE session, to kind of those two together, and really found some magic and some power in that.
Yeah.
Doing it
when
together.
You say partner, do you mean like their
wife or a
their
husband,
spouse, that sense? Yeah. It's interesting because a while back, and I lost this book. I had a copy of a book, and it was all about, and this was written at least 10 years ago, because I've had the book for probably 8 years. And the topic of the book was about the sort of stress and the kind of stress effects of both law enforcement and fire service. That was the whole topic of the book. And I got it because this was almost a decade ago. I had one client who I think was an EMT or something, and she wanted me to understand sort of some of the principles involved with, kind of about being on call, just sort of some of the things that were kind of common to that, that profession.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lost the book and I'm trying to find it again. But a few chapters of the book really centered around this idea that family relationships could often be put under stress, spouse relationships. And what it was looking at is that because of the lifestyle and the impact on the nervous system of, again, a profession where you're maybe having to respond to emergencies. There's also obviously high intensity and stress to the job itself. And it was talking about then sort of the ripple effect into the family systems. And it made so much sense to me. And so hearing what you're saying right now makes me think, yeah, cool. Like that's another angle to explore is not only the individual's sort of process of burnout and resilience, but then does that support more connection into the family system? So yeah, I just wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
I know the fire service, police, medical, very high rates of divorce, very high compared to the general public.
Okay.
And I think that has to do a lot with, we actually spend more time at work than we do at home.
Okay.
We're on rotation. So there's a lot of other jobs and occupations that are on rotation and night shifts, but for the fire service, we're on night shifts.
Yep.
We come home and we're stressed and we're actually in fight or flight for that whole time that we're home. And then we go back to work again.
Yep.
So yeah, I truly think that working with a coach or doing TRE could definitely impact and improve your relationships with your partner, your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever that looks like. 100%.
Yeah, cool. Well, so in your 24 years in the service, it sounded like, there've been some culture changes. Like, for example, mental health became more, at this point, a normalized piece, but maybe it wasn't very much represented in the beginning. When you think about kind of where the industry is headed, over the next 10, 20 years, like what hopes do you have? Where do you kind of hope where do you think we should continue to go?
Well, if I could sum it up in one word, it would be humanize. So I really want to see, and I think we're on the right path, is to bring back the compassion to our employees, to the empathy, to the trust, to the respect, to just being good humans. I think we've lost that in a lot of aspects in a lot of occupations where it's dollars over people. Yeah. And I understand you have to make money, but there's also ways of ethically making money. And in a career position like a city servant as the fire service, there's always definitely budget cuts and everything like that. Right. But I still think we've also missed the gap of taking care of each other, taking care of yourself. Right. And I think that is starting to change. I'm definitely seeing more and more discussion about taking care of number one. In the fire service for pretty much my whole career, the only person that we cared about was the person that we were going to save. And now I've kind of changed my tune, especially on that, is sure, we're there to save that person. That's our job. That's our responsibility. But we're not going to be able to do that if we're not taking care of ourselves. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if you want to be this elite firefighter, you want to be this high performing firefighter that people trust and respect, you got to start with yourself. And it has to be your own wellness, your own mental health, your physical health, all in check for you to be of service to anyone. Yeah. And that's kind of gone away, and it's starting to come back a little bit, thanks to a lot of, good ambassadors across North America. Yeah. Who are sharing their stories of, vulnerability and just being human again. I think that's the key. And I definitely want to be a part of that. But it's a huge movement that requires a lot of people, a lot of uptake.
Do you have like-minded colleagues? Are you have collaborators in some of this movement that you're involved with?
When I was the fire chief, I thought I had amazing connections and relationships across the world.
Right.
Since retiring and launching this business, I have 10x'd my relationships with people. And I think it has come down to two different things. I now have the capacity to actually have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Quality conversations.
Yeah.
As a fire chief, I really felt that my energy was so drained all the time. My nervous system was fried that I couldn't actually have good quality conversations. It was just in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
Just couldn't concentrate, brain fog, always thinking about what I got to do next day for work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now the chance to sit down and actually just talk with people.
Right.
The podcast has obviously helped with that a lot, but my coaching has helped with that a lot.
Yeah.
But even just reaching out, I had a conversation with a lady this morning talking all about stress and burnout. And it was an hour and a half. We were supposed to meet for 30 minutes.
Right.
And it was just a powerful conversation, and just felt, it fills my bucket now versus draining me, which it
versus
used to drain
draining.
me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about the podcast, the Beneath the Helmet. What are the themes? It's, I presume, I've listened to some episodes, but not all of them. What themes get explored there in your podcast?
Well, when I was developing the idea of having a podcast, I was looking around what other firefighter podcasts are out there. Yeah. I thought, well, there's no point in me wasting my knowledge on firefighting. I might as well use that, even though I'm not in the fire service anymore. Yeah. And I looked around, there's a few podcasts that kind of resembled Beneath the Helmet, but really what I was seeing was a podcast all about mental health, or a podcast all about physical health, or a podcast all about leadership, but nothing was a holistic approach. And that's where I said, okay, I'm going to develop everything beneath the helmet. So when I think of that, it's the mind, body, and spirit of being an elite firefighter. So everything that's underneath the helmet, we're going to talk about. Yeah. So that covers everything from mental health, physical health, self-leadership, professional development, just wellness in general. Those are the key themes for sure. And it's definitely got a fire audience. Yeah. But it's also grown to much bigger than that now. Now there's people that are just working professionals, hospital staff, nurses, police officers. Yeah. It's definitely grown in not just a fire podcast.
Great.
Anymore.
Great.
Even though that's kind of my realm and that's kind of where my wheelhouse is, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who's not a firefighter couldn't listen to it and get a lot out of it. And I think what's kind of stands out is I also bring on a lot of guests that are not traditional podcast guests that you would find on all the other podcasts that are in the fire world. Yeah. I've brought on people that talk about TRE. I've brought on people who talk about equine therapy. I've brought on people who talk about psychedelic therapy for PTSD. Yeah. So it's very kind of, it's different. It's a different one. It's not the classic podcast guest that you see on all the other podcasts. Oh, they're on there, but it's also a variety of other people as well.
Yeah. Well, when you and I first connected, that was the first thing we said is that we said, hey, isn't it so much fun having a podcast? Like, not only is it sort of fun, but just the chance to sort of meet people and speak with them that you would not have otherwise, most likely.
Yeah. The opportunity to sit down and take an hour of somebody's precious time is pretty hard to do without a podcast. So a podcast really opens up the door to allow me to sit and talk to you for an hour, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. Cool. It's very fun. Yeah. And you were talking about the warrior quote at the beginning, and I think this is worth why that's in there. Yeah. So my name is Arjuna, and in Sanskrit, it means silver or bright. Okay. So the name actually came from my parents were reading the book Bhagavad Gita way back when they were pregnant with me. Yep. And they just fell in love with the name. They were like, this is a pretty cool name. Yeah. And so I was named that. I hated it for most of my life. I thought this is the worst name in the world because nobody else is like me. I'm the lone wolf, and there's the Billies and Johns out there, and I was the only Arjuna. Right. But since burnout, I kind of said, no. It's time to be my own genuine, authentic self, and started owning it. And now I introduce myself as Arjuna versus a nickname that I have, such as AJ or something like that. Yeah. And I don't mind if people call me that, but now I'm embracing that.
It feels good. It feels good to be Arjuna. I love that. Yeah.
So it means in Sanskrit, it means silver or bright. Okay. And Arjuna was an archer and a warrior in the book Bhagavad Gita. Right. So put those two together to build my name, Silver Arrow, which
Silver
is
Arrow
silver,
coaching,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
Arrow was the archer. But
Right.
also in the coaching realm, I like to see people moving forward in the direction. So
Yeah.
the arrow also symbolizes moving people forward in a
Forward
positive
trajectory.
direction.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of the birth of Silver Arrow, and that's why that warrior statement is
I
in there.
love that. And then the resilience warrior
Yes.
in high pressure environments. No,
Yes.
that captures the essence of your mission, who you
Yes.
are, and what your mission seems to be.
100%.
That's wonderful. Very cool. Well, anything else you'd want? Anything else we should add before we wrap up?
Well, I would say, I guess, to any of the listeners who have not tried TRE, I honestly think everyone in the world should try it. Maybe if it doesn't resonate with you, move on, try something different.
Yeah.
But give it a try, because it truly changes lives. It changed my life.
Yeah.
My nervous system has never been this calm, this relaxed. It's a beautiful feeling. So I would say, if you haven't tried it, find a TRE provider near you or on Zoom and give it a whirl, because it's life-changing.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Well, Arjuna, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure.
Likewise. I can't wait to learn more about from you and keep exploring my TRE journey, because I'm just at the tip of the iceberg.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Redbeard Embodiment Podcast. To learn more, visit us at redbeardsomatictherapy.com or send me an email at alex@redbeardsomatictherapy.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, help spread the word by subscribing and sharing with others. Hope to see you next time.